Dr. Neil Shastri-Hurst.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I should start by referring to my register of interests and in particular my participation with a parliamentary delegation to Ukraine in February of this year with the UK Friends of the Armed Forces. And I want to build on some of the arguments by the Honourable Member for Dunfermline and Dollar, because as I was sat here listening to what I think has been a thoughtful and valuable debate today, I think that the issue that really struck me above anything else was that in many ways we're preaching to the converted in this chamber. I think those of us who are here recognise the seriousness of the moment. We understand that defence isn't an optional extra. We understand that it cannot wait for a more convenient fiscal moment. But our responsibility goes much further than this chamber, of course. Our responsibility is to that of the British public, and that means telling them the truth. And the truth is, as we have heard repeatedly through the course of today, the world has changed and the threats are very real. And for far too long, Madam Deputy Speaker, we have risked treating defence as something done by someone else, by sailors under the waves, by soldiers on distant deployments, by pilots in the skies. But modern deterrence asks us to do much more individually. It also requires government to be honest and for the public to understand what is really at stake. The government, as we've heard, have clearly set out that Russia could be in a position to attack a NATO ally by as early as the end of this decade. The Chief of Defence Staff has warned that we're not as ready as we need to be, and the noble Lord, the Lord Robertson, a distinguished former Secretary-General of NATO, has gone even further. He's been really blunt in his assessment that we're simply not ready. And those are the judgment of people who have spent their entire lives defending our country. Madam Deputy Speaker, we mustn't treat the British public like children. They don't need comforting slogans. They need searing honesty from people in public office. Because on the one hand, we cannot set out a case where we are saying to them that Russia is probing our waters, that hostile states are targeting our energy networks, our satellites and our cyber systems, and then suggest that the answer to those dangers are promises that begin in the next decade. Quite simply, Madam Deputy Speaker, we can't describe a 2030 threat and offer a 2035 solution. And that, I believe, is the central weakness at the heart of the government's approach to date. Readiness is not simply about owning equipment. It's about having the people who are trained to use it. It's about having the stockpiles behind it. It's about having the reservists who are able to mobilise. It's about factories that can surge. It's about ports that can receive and energy systems that can endure. It is not simply the case to say a nation is ready because a minister declares that it is ready. A nation is ready when the whole system is ready to row in behind it. And the reality is that national security requires choices, it requires discipline, and we have to be blunt, it requires sacrifices. For the last 30 years or so, we enjoyed a peace dividend. Too often, we behaved as though this would never end. But we forgot the simple truth that freedom is never free. There is always a cost to be paid. There is a different cost depending upon the generation, and each has to deal with it in different ways. Our duty is to ensure that this generation pays in preparedness so that the next generation doesn't pay in blood. The British people understand that if we level with them. And that's why the arguments around 3% of GDP for defence spending in this Parliament aren't an extravagant ambition. They are the bare minimum as a response to what is a deteriorating world. Madam Deputy Speaker, Britain is not a weak nation. We possess one of the most extraordinary armed forces in the world. We have outstanding intelligence services. We have world-class scientists and engineers. And above all, we do have a people who have never failed this country when they've been told the truth. Therefore, if we want to defend the peace that we so cherish, we cannot have a resilience that starts after the crisis has already begun. And it's perhaps worth ending by remembering that the cost of preparedness will always be far less than the cost of war itself. Yeah.